Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Zoning Board meeting of July 10th, 2025, in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231. Adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Zoning Board of the Township of Franklin has been provided. Board members, applicants, professionals, and members of the public, please speak directly into the mics so that our recording secretary can properly process minutes. Applicants and professionals, please fill out the sheet on the table when you've completed your testimony. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Okay, Chairman Thomas. Cheryl Basia, Michael Doherty, Kunal Lakia, all asked to be excused this evening, just so you're aware.
Okay.
Richard Prokanik.
Here.
Basim Radas.
Here.
Alan Rich.
Here.
Gary Rosenthal.
Here.
Robert Shepard.
Here.
Faraz Khan.
Here.
Shapendra Singh.
Here.
And Chairman Thomas.
Here. We have minutes, regular meeting, June 5th, 2025.
Robert Shepard and Faraz Khan cannot vote.
I'll move. A second.
Richard Prokanik.
Yes.
Basim Radas.
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal.
Yes.
Shapendra Singh.
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes. We can move right to the hearing section for the one application on the agenda today. IDI Logistics LLC, ZBA 24-00010. D1 use variance, preliminary final site plan with C variances, in which the applicant seeks to build a 212,500 square foot warehouse at 13 Executive Drive, Somerset, lot 469, lots 1.03, 1.04, 1.07, and the B1 zone.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Paul Conchatori, an attorney with the law firm of Price, Meese, Schulman, and Darminio, representing the applicant IDI Logistics LLC for this application, which, as indicated, concerns 1-3 Executive Drive. It is a D1 use variance, along with some bulk variances, preliminary and final site plan approval for construction, as the chairman indicated, of a 212,500 square foot warehouse distribution logistics facility. This application is one that we have made a lot of effort on already. To start with some of the things we already have: flood hazard permit approval. We have county approval, DRCC approval. We're close on the wetlands. We have the Franklin Sewer Authority as well with their conditional approval. So the applicant is making great strides to get this in a position to expedite the matter tonight and to have this come on board as quickly as possible, hoping for an approval. In that regard, we have been in communication with your professionals, specifically Mr. Healy, Mr. Mazzei, your engineer. We did have a meeting earlier today to go through and get further clarity on their comments, to talk through some things with the goal and purpose of expediting matters so that this board does not have to can spend as minimal time as necessary to kind of get to the point of making a decision. I can tell you happily that we did make some significant progress, and I want to just for a few minutes touch on what it is. You'll hear about it in detail, but I think it's best just to hear a few minutes of it now. First relates to the vacation of Executive Drive. The street is one that only services currently this property. It was clear from the comments that the clear preference of Franklin is to have that street vacated. We talked through the issue, and I can represent, and you'll hear, that the applicant will consent to initiating promptly a request of the municipality to vacate that street, and will do whatever's necessary to assist in that process, and that can be, or we would consent to that being a condition of hopefully an approval this evening. That process, as you all may know, is overwhelmingly in the hands of the municipality. It's an ordinance adoption process. We know that the property is legal, the street is legally able to be vacated, so we hope that it would be done promptly. But there is always the possibility of some issue arising, some legal or engineering issue that causes delay. So for that, we do have a nuance in terms of the condition which we discussed today and had consensus on, of course, subject to the board, it pleasing the board. If there is some delay in that process, which we do not expect, but you never know, and we have completed all other resolution compliance issues. In other words, we are in the position with all outside agency approvals, all resolution compliance is done, such that we would be in a position to obtain a building permit. If the only thing left is, for whatever reason, either the town has not moved on it, that is still out there, we would be able to proceed with construction permits, building occupancy, while we continue to work through the street vacation process. We don't think that's going to happen, but obviously I have to deal in the world where we can't really countenance that risk, so that makes sense. We would have a continuing obligation to do whatever's necessary to get that done. But if that were to happen, which we don't think will happen, that's the way we kind of discussed it, in which I would say I would consider, hopefully at the time of conditions of an approval. Related to the street vacation, I want to just touch on variances for a moment. One of the many good things about the street vacation is that it eliminates two significant bulk variances. Significantly, we have parking of cars and trucks on the front yard of Executive, and we have truck loading on the front yard of Executive. Those would go away with the street vacation, which obviously is a very significant thing. We discussed as well, though, however, that again, on the untoward event of a delay, we will be putting on the evidence for those variances, and we would respectfully request that they be adjudicated and we think approved, for the reason that if there is a delay and we're in the position to obtain the permits, we would need those variances having been granted in order to proceed to construction and occupancy. You'll hear that we believe it's very clear that this is a very unique situation. The idea that the street is going to be vacated is certainly unique. The property itself is incredibly unique in that the street only services this property, and it has the property 3 street frontages. It has Route 287, Executive, and Davidson. So you'll hear that evidence, and we would respectfully request that even though we know and expect, hopefully very promptly, that those variances will not be necessary, we do need that to be part of the process. Lastly, the comments from your engineer made reference to the request for roadway improvements at the intersection of Davidson and what is Executive Drive now. The details of that will be during resolution compliance. We discussed the generalities of it, but again, the applicant will consent to having that as a condition to implement those roadway improvements, which will be coordinated through your engineering department and Mr. Healy to the extent it's relevant on his avenue as well. So that is also a consent. I will say, as you'll hear, the concept of that is on the assumption and understanding that the other application, which is pending before this board for the adjacent property for a warehouse development, if and when that comes before the board and if and when that's approved, our assumption and expectation would be that that same condition for those same roadway improvements at that intersection would also be a condition of that approval. And then, of course, the coordination would be between the two applicants to figure out how it gets done, who pays for it, et cetera. But that's the expectation. So those are 3 significant things I think we've kind of squared away to expedite matters. In closing, the only thing I want to just mention in terms of the use variance itself and the appropriateness of this site, very briefly, we know a year and a half has gone by and Franklin has retained outside planners and traffic consultants to evaluate comprehensively where in the BI zone a conditional use for a warehouse may exist or be appropriate. This does not control you, and I say this only for purposes of general information, but the ordinance which has been prepared, not acted on yet, comprehensively talks about warehouse development and identifies what our project would be, which would be a medium intensity warehouse. It identified 10 different conditions relating to proximity to 287, proximity to residential, size of the building, number of loading docks, et cetera, and came up with these 10 conditions of saying, if you meet these, it's appropriate. And the only thing I'll say, again, for general references and for understanding the appropriateness of this site, With the vacation of the street, this site would comply with all 10 of those conditions. So I think that's at least relevant to at least understand that independently, those professionals have determined that a project like this does make sense. Doesn't control here, but I wanted to just make that statement so that you have that information. With that, unless there's anything.
1 second. I know it's getting ahead of it a little bit, but your introduction kind of introduced this. And good intentions are fine, but things need to be on the record. I like your comment. My proposal is that if this be approved, and we go forward with road improvements and so on, vacating the street, the traffic signal remains there and in effect.
I mean, operational during the
Yes.
construction. Yeah, I mean, I think that's typically how that's
I think the
not
traffic
unusual.
signal there is crucial because you have 2 lanes of traffic coming off 287 up Davidson Avenue, all merging at that point.
Understood. I would defer to the, we have traffic, and
But
so I would defer to that, but I
For the
certainly
record,
understand.
should this go forward, then your client's resources toward this project will be to not only vacating the street, but maintaining the traffic signal.
Understood.
Okay, we can go on, thank you.
Okay. So unless there's any other questions or comments, I can call the first witness and get started.
I guess the only other question that I have is whether the vacating of the street will result in the removal of the macadam of the street so that the impervious coverage would be reduced.
We can certainly ask. I don't think that it has gotten to that point. I think those are things that would come out during the resolution compliance and figuring out how that works. My expectation would be that it would be remaining as needed for the proper, we're going to be improving the intersection, so it really is a function of engineering and such. So I couldn't speak to that, but I don't think the idea is to make it go away. I think we need it. It's just going to be a driveway instead of with now improvements at the intersection.
Yeah, Bob, let me speak to that real quick. I think what I would suggest is, to the degree that the cul-de-sac extends beyond, or the street extends beyond their access, I would, again, if the board was to grant this, I would suggest that it be a condition that the applicant explore that with staff. I'd like to find out, for example, from our emergency management officials, fire prevention, do they want the cul-de-sac to stay, the bulb at the end, or not? I mean, it's there now because it's serving 3 different properties and it's a public road. But if it was to be abandoned, the road was to be vacated, does that bulb need to stay or not? I can't answer that, but I think it's something that, again, we can explore. If it can go, great, less impervious. If it has to stay, it has to stay.
So if we were to, if in any possible resolution, that should be included as something to be discussed with the Franklin Township zoning.
Yeah, I would suggest, again, if we get there, I would suggest that would be a condition that the applicant, that we'd have to explore that. Whether can any of the existing macadam go away?
Okay.
These kinds of things, like the street vacation, raises issues that are just things that have to kind of be worked out as you go through that process, but we understand where you're coming from.
I think now we can actually get started.
Okay, thanks. Justin? Yeah. That's fine.
Okay, so your first witness, Mr.
Yes, this
Conchatori,
is Justin Burns, a
Okay.
representative
Mr.
of the
Burns,
applicant.
if you can raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give before this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you Can you just repeat your name, spell your last name for the record, please?
Justin Burns, B-U-R-N-S.
Thank you.
Mr. Burns, for purposes of the board, can you provide your title, position with IDI, experience, et cetera?
Sure. My name's Justin Burns. I'm the Northeast Market Officer for IDI Logistics. I am responsible for acquiring new and managing existing projects within the Northeast region.
And obviously, you're familiar with this particular application and all of its details.
That's correct.
Can you provide some background detail on IDI briefly? I know we had another project approved around the corner on Davidson, but for this board, that was before the planning board, perhaps you can just generally acquaint them with IDI Logistics.
Sure. IDI Logistics is a investor and developer of logistics warehousing. The company's been around for approximately 36 years. In that time, we've developed approximately 240 million square feet of warehouse development for more than 700 customers across the United States. In New Jersey, we have a portfolio of approximately 4 million square feet. And I would say specifically within the Northeast region and specifically in New Jersey, we've been heavily focused on the redevelopment of non-performing properties into warehousing to basically turn something that's quite frankly just an eyesore within a township and try and create an asset for both a tax benefit and a job benefit.
Thank you. And obviously, we'll have professionals that will talk about it from their perspective. But again, briefly, from your perspective as the applicant, a real estate developer, what are the aspects of this property that make this something that came to your attention and makes sense for this project?
Yeah, so I already touched on this a little bit, but I would say the fact that this is a redevelopment. So Executive Drive, similar to our project that we have on 195 and 215 Davidson, we're going to be redeveloping 3 vacant office buildings into a Class A state-of-the-art warehouse development. So obviously, the redevelopment component is critical for us. Second, this really fits within the neighborhood, in our opinion. It's surrounded by other commercial properties, and it is not proximate to any residential, which again is a key component for warehouse development for us. The third factor would also be the proximity to I-287, a major interstate highway system, which effectively gives almost uninterrupted access for both cars and trucks from the highway to the proposed warehouse. And then lastly, the fact that the property has both water and sewer already available.
And then in terms of the building itself, perhaps you could just confirm for the record the size of the building and just what is this a spec building? Are there tenants? How many would you expect to possibly be in an ideal world in the building? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so the building that we're proposing here is 212,500 square feet. This will be built on a speculative basis, meaning that there is no tenant identified at the start of construction. Our expectation here is that this will be a single-tenant building. However, we have designed it to accommodate 2 tenants.
Just in terms of some details to make things clarified, there was a question/comment, I think, in Mr. Healy's regarding signage. Just to confirm for the record, the understanding is that there will be no signage variances requested. Can you just confirm that?
Yeah, confirming for the record that we will not have a signage variance.
Okay. There is a variance regarding loading berth, which length of it, which is something very common. I know it comes up in every application in terms of the size. Can you just comment on the size of the loading berth we're proposing in terms of industry standard versus what otherwise is required by the ordinance?
Yeah, so we generally refer to it as truck court within our industry. 130 feet is industry standard across North America. I can say that within our 4 million square foot portfolio in New Jersey, all of our truck courts are 130 feet.
Similarly, with the width of the driveway, the truck driveway, which is 36 permitted, we're at 40.6. Perhaps you can just comment on that from your perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, really the thought process there was just accommodating safe traffic flows for the trucks. Alex LeMay, our engineer, will touch on that in greater detail, but that was the rationale.
Okay. And that's something that's customarily, is a standard essentially that you use in the developments?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, ultimately, right, you just have to accommodate the truck turning radius in an appropriate way that's safe for traffic.
Okay. In terms of vacation of Executive Drive, if you can just confirm, a meeting today and your thoughts on, from the applicant's point of view, the idea of vacating the street and it being a condition of approval, in your words.
Yeah, so we agree with the advantages, as Paul stated, with vacating Executive Drive. Effectively today, it only serves Executive Drive, and it's effectively a driveway for our property as it stands today. And again, as Paul stated, it would effectively remove 2 variances.
In terms of the nuance of possible delay, although we don't think it'll happen, is that something critical in your mind for accepting the condition in terms of being able to move forward in the event of a delay to the street vacation process?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, as all of you know, this is a significant investment for IDI, and ultimately we have to build the building within a specific time frame, and then we're also obviously looking for tenants to occupy the building. So we'd obviously be concerned if that would jeopardize the construction timing in addition to the occupancy of a tenant.
There was also mention in the reports, and we discussed at our meeting today, the road improvements at the intersection of Davidson and Executive Drive. Can you just confirm that you understand that you would accede to a condition related to those improvements, the details of which will be done during resolution compliance?
Yes, we understand and we agree.
And is there an expectation of, I know there's an adjoining site that may come before this board. Do you have an expectation on those road improvements as it relates to that in terms of approval of that application, similar conditions, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, that would be my assumption. Yeah.
Okay. Is this building solar ready?
The building will be developed solar ready. We build all of our buildings with the capacity for solar. So long as the grid can accept solar and the tenant has a need for solar, we would plan on developing solar on this building. But every building we develop has the load capacity on the roof to accommodate solar.
And LEED certification, same question. What's the position there for this project and generally?
Yeah, again, similar, effectively across the country for IDI Logistics. Again, we take sustainability and building in an environmentally conscious way very seriously. So every project is LEED certified, and then we try and pursue the highest level of LEED certification that's possible for a project.
Okay, thank you. Those are the questions I have for Mr. Burns.
Anything from the board?
What does solar ready mean? Does that just mean that the roof of the building would support the necessary equipment to be solar active?
Correct. It just requires extra investment from us in terms of the roof load, so that the panels can be effectively the roof can support the weight of the solar panels.
Thanks.
Yep.
Now, along those lines, the solar is 40%, if I'm not mistaken, right? 40% of the total roof? That's what it would be?
I believe
Okay.
that's correct, but we'll put that on.
The other 60%, does any of your properties have green roofs?
We do not. We've evaluated that for certain projects. We have not initiated it with any projects, but we're constantly evaluating new ways. That's generally, there's issues with cost and just the weight associated with that roof and the maintenance. So the short answer is no.
Any other questions? All right, we'll open to the public. Is there anyone that would like to ask this witness a question concerning his testimony? Come up to the mic, please. Again, just to reiterate, this session is to question the witness concerning his testimony.
Oh, hello, my name is Barbara Burns.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I live at 79 Haverhill Place. And I have a question about the truck route coming to and from 287. Is it going to be going down Davidson, or is it going to just be on and off 287?
Yeah, I mean, one of the attractive features of the property to us was the proximity to 287. It would be our expectations that trucks would almost exclusively use 287.
That's good. And there's been a lot of warehouses being built, and somebody mentioned something about a request from the township for a truck stop. We have a shopping center near where we live, and tractor trailers have been parking in the back and running refrigeration units at night. Do you envision a truck stop or anything necessary for your trucks? Is it going to be 24/7, and is it going to, how many trucks are there going to be, or?
It's subject to the tenant that ultimately occupies, but we don't anticipate a truck stop or anything like that.
Okay. All right. And there'll be no negative effects on our drinking water because I think our drinking water comes near there.
If you can.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. That's all I can think of. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll close to the public. Next witness.
Very good. Alex Lemay of Bowler Engineering, who is the project engineer.
Just a quick question. Mr. Conciatori, I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
You did, thank you.
Oh, yes. Can you so what other folks are you going to have presenting today?
We have, after Ms. Lemay, we have Betsy Dolan to briefly touch on traffic. We have our architect who will basically just do the renderings and show what it is, and then we have Paul Greigel, who obviously the planner, to talk about it.
Okay. And the reason I asked that question is just for any members of the public. You're going to hear from a few different experts. So that you're going to hear from the site engineer. So if you have questions about his testimony, you're going to hear from. If you have questions about the architecture, you're going to hear from the architect. You can ask those questions to the architect. The traffic engineer is going to testify to the traffic, so you can ask questions about traffic to that person, and then the planner is going to testify. So just keep that in mind. So if you have questions, just so you can point your questions to the correct person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lemay, if you can raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give before this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you just repeat your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Alex Lomé, L-O-M as in Mary, E-I.
Thank you.
Ms. Lemay, can you briefly provide the board with a benefit of your schooling experience, testimony before this board and others?
Sure. I graduated with a Bachelor in Science for Civil Engineering from the University of Delaware. I'm licensed in the state of New Jersey since 2016. My license is currently active. And I'm a senior project manager with Bowler Engineering with an office located at 30 Independence Boulevard, Suite 200 in Warren, New Jersey. And I've been with Bowler for almost 14 years.
And you've testified before this board and others, I assume?
I've testified before this board, and I've testified before the Township's Planning Board as well.
Okay, we accept him as a...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lemay, can you provide the board with the underlying conditions that you think are relevant, as well as the engineering aspects of this project that are relevant for them, including reference to any comments from engineer planner for the board?
Yes. So up on screen right now, I have an aerial exhibit that just outlines the existing conditions, which will mark.
Can we just mark this as an exhibit?
Yes.
A1.
Yes.
This is dated June 27, 2023. It's prepared by our office, and north is to the top of the page. As Mr. Conciatori had noted in his introduction, the site is identified on the tax map as block 469, lots 103, 1.03, 1.04, and 1.05. Just, I'm sure the board is familiar. Sorry, 1.07. I'm sure the board is familiar with the site. But just very quickly for edification, Davidson Avenue and the surrounding area. Davidson Avenue lies to the east of the site with a hotel use beyond. Executive Drive, currently Executive Drive is to the north with a cultural center beyond. Interstate 287 is to the south with some industrial uses beyond. And there's a cemetery to the west with single-family residential beyond. The site is approximately 18.33 acres. It's situated currently in the BI, Business and Industry Zone, where a warehouse is not a permitted use. And as Mr. Conchatori had mentioned in his opening, the town, we understand the township's currently going through a re-examination of their master plan. There's an assessment on different intensity industrial uses, and for this site, the site would qualify in the proposed condition as a medium intensity industrial use. And with the vacation of Executive Drive, we would comply with all 10 of the conditions for that intensity industrial use. So I'd like to bring up my second exhibit.
A2.
And we can mark this as Exhibit A2, and I'll zoom in a bit. But this is a colorized version of the overall site plan sheet that was included with our submission package. That was sheet C301 in the submission package. And just for the board, I'd like to go through just the proposed conditions for the site. And I'd also just like to point out north is towards the top of the page for this exhibit. And it's dated July 10th, 2025, and again, prepared by our office. The development proposes a 212,500 square foot warehouse with associated loading docks, driveways, car parking spaces, stormwater and utility infrastructure, landscaping, and lighting. While we noted that the warehouse is not a permitted use in the zone, we are in front of this board seeking a use variance for the warehouse. From a parking perspective, we are proposing 152 car parking spaces for the site, which exceeds the minimum requirement of 93 spaces, and also exceeds the minimum requirement for the medium intensity light industrial pursuant to the master plan reexamination, which had a requirement of 119 spaces. The parking will include 6 ADA accessible spaces, 2 of which would be van accessible per the code. And we also propose 7 electric vehicle parking spaces, which are located to the east and west sides of the car parking, which is located on the south side of the building. And the proposed EV parking and the number of those complies with the state statute as well. Within the EV parking spaces, there will also be 1 of the EV parking spaces as ADA accessible. We're also proposing 22 trailer parking spaces on the north side of the site. The building also has 39 loading docks on the north side of the building, which are facing Executive Drive. We also have 2 drive-up ramps on either end of the loading docks on the east and the west, which are for use by smaller box trucks to drive up the ramp and make deliveries as needed. Mr. Conchatori had noted it in his opening as well. We are requesting a variance for the requirement for parking, drive aisles, or driveways within the 50-foot front yard setback. The site is unique such that there are 3 front yards. There's a front yard that borders I-287 to the south, a front yard for Executive Drive to the north, and the more true front yard with Davidson Avenue to the east. We are requesting that variance for Executive Drive and for I-287. Now, with the vacation of Executive Drive that's been mentioned, that variance relief requirement would go away effectively, but we would have still the variance for the 287 side of the property. And again, 287 is about 15 feet below grade from the proposed site, and there's a pretty substantial landscape buffering with existing trees and shrubs that do a pretty good job screening from I-287. Relative to kind of pedestrian circulation for the site, we're proposing concrete sidewalk along the south side of the building to service the car parking spaces and provide access to the building. ADA accessible routes are proposed from the ADA parking spaces to the entrance doors on the south side of the building. And we're also proposing a sidewalk from the building along the east side of the building, along the car driveway, back out to Executive Drive, and then ultimately back out to Davidson Avenue to provide connectivity to the public right-of-way. Access for the site's proposed via an ingress-egress driveways on Executive Drive. The westerly driveway is for truck access, and the easterly driveway would be for car access to the parking lot on the south side of the building. As mentioned previously, we are requesting a variance for the width of the driveway, for the truck driveway on the west side for the West Executive Drive, for being greater than 36 feet. We're proposing 40.6 feet, and that really is to promote safety for trucks entering and exiting from that driveway and to be able to avoid conflict if they're making turning motions at the same time. We're proposing two-way circulation around the north and the south sides of the building for truck and car access, respectively, and we also are providing an emergency access lane around the rear of the building, circulating to the west for emergency vehicles, fire truck access around all sides of the building. The truck court and the docks along the north side of the building total 130 feet in width for truck access and maneuvering. We are requesting a variance for that width as well, as the code requires 2 times the length of the longest truck. So in this instance, the code requirement would be 147 feet. But as Mr. Burns had stated in his testimony, 130 foot width for a truck court is industry standard across the United States, and plenty of room for truck maneuverability. There was a comment in the CME letter from the board engineer requesting circulation plans for trucks and fire trucks and access, which would be provided to the town as part of resolution compliance. We're also requesting the variance for the loading space maneuvering area in the front yard for the portions of the truck court because Executive Drive is a public right-of-way, but again, if Executive Drive is vacated, that variance would be eliminated. Very quickly on signs, we're proposing 1 monument sign near the front corner of Executive Drive in the northeast of the site. And the sign will be less than 100 square feet, including measuring the base of the sign, and would comply with what is allowed by code. Furthermore, for the building, we would be proposing 2 wall signs. Each would be less than 100 square feet and have a vertical dimension of less than 2 feet in height, assuming there was multiple tenants, and no more than 1 sign on any facade would be present to comply with the code. The board may notice in the packet with the site plan that we are noting 4 signs are proposed in a variance, but that is not the case anymore. It'll be 2 signs on the building to comply with the code, and we would not be requesting a variance. Just very quickly to talk about some wetlands on the west side of the site. There are flagged wetlands on the western portion of the site, which have an anticipated transition area of 50 feet. However, the proposed site improvements are outside of the wetlands, and all the proposed improvements for the site are limited to the already currently disturbed asphalt areas of the site. And in the condition, we are going to be eliminating paved areas and asphalt surfaces and replacing that with grass in some of the transition areas for the wetlands. So that's something that's allowable by the DEP's code under normal site maintenance. They usually promote removal of asphalt surfaces in their transition areas or their wetlands and replacing it with grass or vegetation. We also have, there's an existing stormwater basin on the north side of the site that was flagged as a wetlands with no anticipated transition area and no improvements proposed in that basin. And as Mr. Conchitore had mentioned, we currently have an application into the DEP for a letter of interpretation to confirm the location of the wetlands and the transition areas associated with them. There's also an unnamed tributary brook along the western side of the property, which has an associated flood hazard area, which the applicant has verified with the DEP and has also received an individual permit for a flood hazard area from the DEP since the site is considered a major development. And as part of that individual permit, the DEP conducts their stormwater management review and has found that the stormwater management proposed for the site complies with the DEP's requirements. Very quickly to touch on coverage for the site, because I think it's important to note. The development proposes 9.29 acres of impervious coverage, which comes to 50.7% of the entire lot, where 60% is allowable by code. This is a decrease of 1.31 acres of impervious coverage on the site, which I think is significant, especially with the goals of the town and this board to reduce impervious coverage in town. So again, a reduction of 1.31 acres of impervious surface on the site. And we also have a net decrease of what the DEP classifies motor vehicle surface area, which is areas where cars and vehicles can drive over. We have a decrease of 4.6 acres of motor vehicle surface area on the site as well. From a utility perspective, we'll have utilities servicing the site. Gas, electric, phone, cable, water, and sanitary sewer are all proposed for the building. We are currently proposing a water connection from Executive Drive. However, we will be revising that to connect directly from Davidson Avenue as requested in the engineer's report prepared by CME Associates related to the application. Quickly for lighting for the site, we're proposing site lighting throughout the property, which complies with the town's requirements. A combination of pole-mounted area lights along access drives and parking areas, as well as building-mounted lights. The pole-mounted lights proposed along the property lines throughout the property will have shields to reduce glare to any of the neighboring properties, and will also face directly downward. They won't be shining up in the air, and they'll be dark sky compliant. For landscaping for the site, we're proposing a combination of shade, ornamental and evergreen trees, and deciduous and evergreen shrubs throughout the entire site. There's landscape screening around the property with a mix of existing and proposed landscaping. We're trying to maintain as much of the existing landscaping as possible around the site. There's also a code requirement for tree replacement for the trees on site that we are proposing to remove. The requirement calls for 295 trees to be replaced, and we are proposing a total of 441 trees to be replanted on site. Relative to screening for the site, I have a few other exhibits I'd just like to show to the board because I think it's important for visibility for the board and to see kind of how some of these views might look from the different areas surrounding. So I'll bring up this cross-section exhibit, and we'll mark that as Exhibit A3. This is also prepared by our office and is dated May 8th of 2025. And I'd like to zoom in on it's hard to see, but I'd like to zoom in on the bottom portion of this exhibit. This is more of a cross-sectional exhibit, a sightline exhibit to demonstrate that a car traveling westbound on I-287 and what they may or may not see as they're driving by the site. So given the significant plus or minus 15-foot elevation change from 287 to the site and the existing landscaping that is already along the southern portion of the property, a car driving by will be pretty well screened with the existing landscaping and the grade change from seeing the building as they drive by the site on I-287. And then lastly, we have a few 3D renderings as well that show some views from Davidson Avenue. I'd like to mark this collection, and it's 4 sheets. I'd like to mark this collection as Exhibit A4, and I'd like to just call this the 3D rendering exhibit package. So this first exhibit, or the first page of this exhibit that you see here is entitled "View from the corner of Davidson Avenue and Executive Drive with planting heights at install," and this is dated January 10th of 2025, prepared by our office. This shows the proposed plantings for the site at the time of installation for trees and screening for the building from the intersection of Executive Drive and Davidson Avenue. And I'd like to go to the next page, which shows the plantings at a maturity height of between 5 and 10 years. So it's the same view, same intersection, same corner, but after between 5 and 10 years of growth and maturity for the trees and health, that they provide a good screen and buffer to the proposed building and even the loading zone from that corner of Executive Drive and Davidson Avenue. And then on the next page, this is looking north from near the bridge coming over 287. This is looking north at the building. And again, this first picture here is showing the plants and the screening at the install height, so when they first get installed. And then similarly, I have the same view with the maturity height of the trees from between 5 and 10 years. So
hold on a second. How tall are the trees when they're planted with regard to the location on Executive Drive and what's the other
Davidson
street?
Avenue?
Davidson, yeah.
Sure. So the install height of the trees is plus or minus 6 feet. It could be 6 to 8 feet.
Okay.
Relative to Davidson Avenue, I believe Davidson Avenue ranges from elevation, let's say 62 to 62 at the south side, to say 66 or 67 at the north side, and the finished floor of the building will be at elevation 62. So generally, this very similar elevation, but once you have the trees in and they have a few years to grow and mature, they will create, from someone's in a car driving by, they'll create a very nice buffer and screening from the building.
Okay, so the Davidson is where that's That's the east side of the, and then across the street from the warehouse is a hotel, is that correct?
Correct.
And will this screening help the hotel avoid a lot of extraneous movement and traffic from the warehouse? Will the trees that you're planning on planting?
They'll block it, yes. From grade level at the hotel with cars driving and circulating around the hotel, yes, it'll provide a good screen. And I believe the hotel does sit a little bit lower in elevation as well, which also helps.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Sure.
I have just one question. If you can go back to the exhibit that's basically at the intersection. That seems to be, if you can just explain to the board, I believe that it's also showing, in addition to the landscaping, kind of a berm.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Haley. Yes, that also includes a berm along Davidson Avenue as well to provide extra elevation, to provide the trees at a higher elevation to further help screen the building from along Davidson Avenue. It's a bit more pronounced at the intersection of Executive Drive and Davidson Avenue than it is on the south side of the site looking north. But yes, there's a proposed berm along the front of the property as well.
And that exhibit reflects the height accurately, consistent with the plan, the grading plan?
That's correct, Mr. Healy.
Thank you.
How tall is the berm?
The berm is about 4 or 5 feet, depends on where you are.
Yeah.
And then I'll leave this up because I think it's a nice illustration, but just very quickly relative to touching on some comment letters that we had received. Regarding the board engineer and the letter received from CME Associates dated June 16th of 2025, we have no objections to the comments in the letter. There is a note of a proposed disturbance within the I-287 right-of-way on the south side of the property, but there is no disturbance on the I-287 right-of-way. We have a few trees near the property line that we are planning to remove, and graphically speaking, we show a limit of disturbance offset from the tree to kind of show that there is disturbance there, but the reality is there will not be any disturbance in the I-287 right-of-way. And just one other note from that, from the engineer's letter that I thought was important to note is that I just wanted to confirm for the board that we can complete all the work with the property without disturbance to any of the flood hazard areas that have been verified by the DEP. And then just quickly from the town's Department of Planning and Zoning letter dated May 9th of 2025. Similarly, we can comply with the comments. We take no objections to the comments. Mr. Healy, we can add shade trees to some of the curb islands that we have in the car parking spaces. That was an item that you had noted in your letter, so we can add some additional shade trees there. There is a comment about disturbance in the stream corridor. The disturbance that is inside the stream corridor is to remove dead or dying trees. It's truly that. We're not replacing, we're not touching anything else in the stream corridor, but it truly is to remove some dead or dying trees in that area. So we will work with Mr. Healy on that aspect of that to get alignment between the plans and the stream corridor preservation exhibit as well.
If I can just pause you for 1 second. I know Mr. Healy in his report also requested that additional detail be provided on building height calculations to make it clearer. I just want to...
Yes, and we will also show building height calculations on our plan as well. The building height from finished floor is 45 feet. We have to run the calculation of average grade at the frontage of the building, which is pretty close to what the finished floor of the building is. And the code allows for 65 feet, so I have no concern that we will comply with the building height requirement for the town.
Mr. Chairman, just one follow-up question. So with respect to the disturbance, in the direction of the stream corridor. So it's my understanding, based on our conversation earlier, that, right now, there's the existing curb line that, defines basically the edge of disturbance of the existing office building site.
Correct.
So I'm going to ask you to confirm my statement.
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding that this plan, there's no pavement, curbing, or any disturbance any closer to the stream than that existing curb line.
That is correct.
Okay. And that means no curbing, no grading, nothing.
That's
basically.
correct.
So to the extent that, the existing proximity of development to that stream and the corridor is not being further disturbed in any way.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's what I just wanted to make sure. So technically, the stream corridor ordinance doesn't really actually come into effect because you're not further disturbing that stream corridor. So thank you.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Haley.
I have another question regarding the view from the east side. I think that between the berm and the trees, you're going to do a good job blocking headlights from the truck shining on the hotel. But what about the building? What kind of lighting is there on the building? Is it just basically no lighting at all?
There's lighting on the building. They're called sconce lights, but they just shine directly down. They're mostly over emergency egress doorways and any entrances and exits off into the building.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
If you could put up the first picture that you had up there.
For 287, or do you want to see the install height of the trees?
No, I don't want to see the trees at all. I want to see the there you go.
This one?
You have 22 semi-parking spaces up there, correct?
Correct.
Is that for the tractor and the trailer, or just the trailer, or how?
It's just for the trailer. It's
Just for the trailer?
correct.
So there won't be any tractors parking there at all?
They'll be there to drop the trailer, but they will not be parking
They
there.
won't be parking there. Perfect. What are you going to do with overflow, if there is any?
From a parking perspective, that's not really a question for me from an operational perspective, unfortunately. But
Okay. All right. That's all I got.
thank you.
Is there anything else that you need to comment on, or are you okay?
That concludes my direct testimony, unless there's any other questions.
I have no further questions for this witness.
Okay, then we'll again open to the public. Is there anyone who'd like to ask the engineer a question concerning his testimony?
May I ask a question before we go to the public? Mark, what's the typical building height in other industrial zones within our township?
Well, the warehouse, the height of warehouses, I think, varies. I think we typically see somewhere in the range of 44 feet to 50.
Okay, it was just being in this zone, it was 65, but I'm sure that was probably more indicative of the commercial aspect of the zone.
Yeah, the zone permits office buildings as well. So I think that's where it comes from. But and the zoning at the time this application was deemed complete. And actually, that's not true. I'd have to look at the ordinance, but I know if you go above 50 feet, then the setbacks change and the buffering changes. So I think the testimony is that they're going to comply with the 50.
Correct.
And they're going to demonstrate that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, again, if there's anyone in the public who'd like to ask a question, seeing none, we'll close. Next witness.
Thank you. Betsy Dolan, please.
Ms. Dolan, do you swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give before this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you just repeat your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Elizabeth Dolan, D-O-L-A-N.
Thank you.
Ms. Dolan, obviously, I know you've testified many times before this in other boards, but
Yes.
perhaps just for the record, if you can very briefly.
Testifying as a traffic engineer, my license in New Jersey is in good standing, and I've testified here and throughout New Jersey many times and qualified as an expert in traffic engineering, and I can go into more detail if any of the board members
We
wish.
accept.
Thank you.
Ms. Dolan, if you can, similar to Mr. LeMay, you've obviously evaluated this from a traffic perspective. If you can provide the board with your findings and underlying conclusions.
Sure. Our office prepared and submitted a May 15, 2024 traffic impact study for the warehouse to replace the office buildings. We initiated the study with traffic counts that were performed during the weekday morning and afternoon, evening peak periods. That was back in March 2024. Taken a while to get here. I've been studying this intersection since 2014, so I had pulled some of our older counts, and back when the office, not just the offices on Executive Drive, but in the general corridor, were full and operating, we had a morning peak hour of about 2,500 vehicles. That's a two-way flow. on Davidson Avenue and about 2,000 in the evening peak hour. And we're now just under 1,900. So there's definitely a reduction as a result of the office vacancy and the transformation of the land use in the area. We did look at different ITE trip generation estimates because the ITE breaks down warehousing into various categories, and a lot of times there's a fear that this is an Amazon type of thing. This is not designed as Amazon. Those buildings have bays on either side for unloading and loading, and they're more intensive with regard to employee parking to accommodate shift overlap and so forth. So we did not use the traditional warehousing numbers. Those are a little bit lower, and as you heard, this is a spec building, so we wanted to err on the side of caution. So we honed in on what is called a parcel hub. So that gave us about 149 trips during the morning peak hour and 136 trips during the evening peak hour, and that's two-way, entering and exiting. I know there was a question from one of the members of the public about truck activity. Now, again, we're relying on the ITE database, but over the course of a day, based on the size of this building, we are estimating about 60 trucks. So that would be over the course of a day. Our traffic study does compare the ITE trip generation for the 260,000 square feet of office that has been here, and it shows when we compare a reduction of over 200 trips. Now, certainly those trips aren't happening here, but that's just provided as a matter of informational purposes. So using ITE to ITE, we would show that the warehouse would generate in excess of 200 fewer trips than the former offices. When I had said that we had counted Executive Drive when the offices were operational, we had lower numbers than the ITE would give you for those offices, but it still results in a decrease in activity of anywhere from 50 to 90 peak hour trips. Since the preparation of this study, and we were advised of the pending application for a warehouse on the other side of Executive Drive, I did obtain the traffic study that Langen prepared, and I know you'll hear testimony from them. But I wanted to review that and see how their volumes would affect our analysis. They used the straight warehouse numbers, but I took all of their numbers, their projections, and our projections, and I ran them through the Executive Drive and Davidson signalized intersection, and I found acceptable levels of service because our report was prepared before we knew about their application, and their traffic study didn't include our projections, presumably because we're not yet approved. But I did run that analysis, and whenever Langen is before you on that application, you may hear similar testimony, but the overall projections with both warehouses is still lower than the volumes that we recorded in 2014 when the office activity was being generated. So we certainly can achieve and maintain acceptable levels of service at the intersection. And to the question regarding maintaining the signal operation, what typically happens is the new poles will be installed, and then the existing signal will be maintained until we have the new curbs constructed, because the curb radii are going to wipe out not just the signal poles, but also some utility poles. So all of that will be coordinated, as we have said, with staff and the applicant who's proposing a warehouse on the other side of the intersection. So from a traffic capacity perspective, the intersection can accommodate our traffic, which is a higher trip generation estimate than Langen's, but overall the numbers are still lower than historically accommodated through that intersection. So it's a pretty standard analysis. We touched on parking, but you heard all of that from Alex. I would agree with the 130 feet for the truck maneuvering, and I know that we did have a very similar approval of that geometry and a couple of other applications I was involved with, one at 230 Belmont, and the one that came in as Duke, but now I think it's Prologis on Elizabeth going north. Those were 135 at Belmont and 130 on Elizabeth Avenue. So it's certainly an appropriate variance relief because the accommodation for the trucks is made within the geometry that's shown on the site plan.
Thank you. Those are the questions I have for this witness.
Anything from the board?
I do have one. How many, in your estimation, tractor trailers would queue up at that light before the light turns green?
Sure, that's a good question. I talked to you about the daily truck numbers, but let's go to the peak hour. In the morning, we're showing 10 entering and 9 exiting over the course of an hour. So if you have 1 per signal, that's probably what it would average out to. Randomly, maybe you have 2. But I don't see a queue occurring because it's a pretty low number. And it's fewer trucks during the evening peak hour, 7 entering, 6 exiting.
Yeah, I'm probably sure you know why I'm asking. There is 80 feet between the stop bar and the curb return for our driveway for the passenger vehicle, so that really
Yeah.
can only accommodate
That's
one tractor
only going to
trailer.
accommodate 1.
So
yeah.
in the once in a day, twice a day, they'll just have to manage it on site.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, that's a pretty long driveway for the passenger vehicles as they're coming up to Executive Drive. So it's not like if you have 2 or 3 cars waiting for the light to change so a truck or 2 can leave, that's not going to cause any problems on site. They're not blocking an on-site intersection. They're not blocking any parking spaces. So I think that, the likelihood of 2, sure, it can happen. And is it going to block? Yeah. So, but those passenger vehicles have the time and space to wait for the signal to change without having a negative impact to site circulation.
I mean, would the applicant be open to a condition that don't block the intersection?
Oh, we could certainly do that. We do it at busy intersections. We can do it here, sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Along those lines, you mentioned acceptable level of service. What letter are we talking? Just to
Sure. It's levels of service B and C coming off of Executive Drive, and that would get less green. So you'd have A and B on Davidson and B and C on Executive.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Betsy. So what's the latest time the trucks are expected to be there, driving in or out of the facility?
Well, I believe they're looking to have 24/7 so that they can market it to any potential tenant or tenants. So if there's some trucks overnight, they'll come and they'll go just as they do during the day. I didn't break down the trip generation overnight, but as I said, you're looking at 5 to 10 per hour during the course of the day. So, you may have a few overnight, but we are up against 287 and no residential. So from that perspective, truck impacts are light, and certainly there's not much traffic on Davidson and Easton during those hours.
I have a question. How many employees are going to be at the?
I think that's dependent upon the tenant. I mean, we look at the peak hour projections. We're looking at, maybe about 60 to 70 cars. So, that's just based on the trip generation. But the employee load is going to be dependent on who occupies the space.
Any others? Then we'll open to the public. Again, would you come up to the mic? And again, reminder, the questions should be based on traffic testimony.
Yes, I have just one quick question. When the trucks are coming off of 287, from the north, what exit will they be taking? Would it be exit 10 or exit 12?
Oh, I think it would be 12 is Easton Avenue, right? Yeah, that's 10, right? They go in that way,
Exit
right?
10, yes.
Exit 10. And also, I know earlier there was mention about Davidson Avenue. There's truck prohibitions further to the south on Davidson Avenue, so we would expect them to be coming to and from Easton Avenue.
From Easton, so it'd be exit 10?
That's exit 10, yeah. Otherwise, they'd have to come via Pierce and exit 12.
And then you mentioned there would be a second warehouse built, and more trucks. I just hope that, the exit 10 can accommodate all of these trucks, especially at rush hour and things things like that.
Sure, we know that 287 is quite constrained at various hours of the day,
Yeah.
and that's a real problem. But the overall volumes on Davidson Avenue, as I had said earlier, are lower than they have historically been. And the big thing that this applicant, and should the other application come before the board, both applicants will need the road improvements, widening out those radii so that the trucks can move onto and off of Executive Drive is an appropriate treatment for this type of use.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, then we'll close to the public. Next witness.
Thank you. Claudio? So Claudio Bruda, who is our project architect. Can you just state your name for the record so that
Yeah.
Mr. Hang?
Sure.
Please.
Good evening. Claudio Breda, B-R-E-D-A.
Okay, Mr. Brito, if you can raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Breda, can you briefly provide the board with your qualifications, experience testifying for this board and others?
Sure. So, licensed architect in New Jersey, as well as 11 other states here on the East Coast. I've been in the field of architecture for 23 years now, and I'm a graduate at Pratt Institute, which I obtained my bachelor's in architecture.
And you've testified before this and other boards?
Yes, I have, yes.
You did mention he's licensed in New Jersey?
Yes, correct.
Okay, we accept.
Thank you. Mr. Breda, can you, as similar witnesses, can you, focusing on the architectural aspects of the project, can you provide the board with a summary of the architectural features referencing exhibits as needed?
I would if I could get this to display.
Yes. Is it in all the way? I know it worked last time we were here, so it has to work.
It did.
Huh. There we go.
No, it doesn't.
Leave it to the engineer.
Thanks, Alex. So I'm going to start
I
with...
think we're up to A5, so we'll mark this as A5.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm going to start with some 3D renderings of the exterior based on previous comments. Comments before were to address the aesthetics of the overall building, if you will. So we did a few studies, and ultimately we landed on this one. What you can see here on the rendering provided some additional reveals, some additional paint breaks, obviously in keeping with the branding colors of IDI Logistics. We also provided an additional canopy at the entrance. So there we try to do a lot of different things to break up the massing of and the scale of the building with different articulation. So this is a close-up of the corner, and then this is a further close-up. And then from here, I could show a quick video going through the site. So this is a view we're driving starting on Davidson Avenue. Obviously driving within the speed limit. So this is on Davidson. Obviously then we're going to slow down to enter Executive Drive. So pull into Executive, and then ultimately we'll turn into the site itself. So I really just wanted to highlight the changes made to the aesthetics of the building, but I could go through the plans and elevations in greater detail if need be.
I think there was a question in one of the comment letters about screening in terms of the roof equipment and things.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see here, given the height of the building, the scale, any roof equipment will not be visible at eye level because they'll be obviously pushed away from the parapet.
Thank you. Those are the questions I have for this witness.
Anything from the board? And we'll open again to the public if anyone has a question for the architect. Okay, we'll close.
I had one quick
I'm
question,
sorry,
sorry.
go ahead.
It popped into my head after you brought it to the
We're
public.
still closed to the public.
What's the clear space internally?
40 feet.
Thank you.
Anything else? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll call my last witness, which is Paul Greigel, who is the planner for the project.
I found out that that's the general accepted level.
Mr. Greigel, if you can raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give before this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Just repeat your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Yes, good evening. It's Paul Greigel, last name spelled Grygiel.
And I apologize, but just cite housekeeping on the exhibits. I think we
The video is A6.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. Thank you. Mr. Greigel, if you can provide the board with your summary of your analysis and conclusions in regards to the, obviously primarily the D1 use variance, as well as the several C variances, including, even though we know that they will become moot with the vacation of the street, we still nonetheless would like testimony regarding the two variances related to executive drive frontage, if you can provide the board with that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Just for the record, I'm a licensed professional planner in New Jersey, have been since 1999.
Thank you.
And I've appeared before this board and over 150 other boards throughout the state as a professional planner.
Good.
Good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
And with that, I think we can provide relatively brief testimony.
Everybody knows who you are.
Oh, well, I wish. We've heard already about the site and the proposal. With regard to planning, I think we can cut right to the chase. Actually, Mr. Consertori actually stole some of my testimony as far as outlining some of the proofs, as did Mr. Burns. But from planning point of view, the issue is we have a property in the BI zone in which the warehouse is not permitted. As we've also heard, the applicant is seeking to build something that complies with the potential new standards for the zone for warehouses of this size. So I will put still the testimony in because we do need a D1 use variance, so I'll address both the positive and negative criteria with regard to that. Just in terms of background, very quickly, we've heard about the site itself being very unique. I think that's important to consider in terms of having 3 road frontages, including one on a street that really only serves the subject property at the current time. So with regard to the positive criteria, I do believe the site is particularly suitable to accommodate the warehouse use. And again, Mr. Burns actually mentioned a number of these, but the setting, the fact that we're in a location in a non-residential section of Franklin Township, the closest residential property is about 650 feet to the west, beyond the cemetery and the stream and a wooded buffer. There's no vehicular access directly to that area, and we actually have direct access via main roads to Route 287. So certainly, I think there'd be no potential impacts as far as residential areas are concerned. The location on Davidson Avenue, again, is in a corridor that has other uses of this type and goes directly in terms of access to an interstate highway. The size of the property is enough to accommodate this use, but it's also a relatively modestly sized warehouse in the scheme of that realm of those types of buildings. It's classified as a medium intensity light industrial use per the regulations that we referred to. Again, they're not adopted regulations, but that were through an extensive publicly noticed and publicly visible process by the township to classify the different types of warehouse uses. So clearly, it's within the realm of what's considered a medium-sized facility, and that for the 10 conditions that are required for that size facility, we meet all of them. So I think for those reasons, the positive criteria are met, and we further purposes of the municipal land use law. Purpose A, the public health, safety, and welfare due to the site's particular suitability, and purpose G being particularly providing sufficient space and appropriate locations for various uses. And again, this is a location that was deemed appropriate through the various studies that have been done by the township. In terms of negative criteria, I think there'd be no substantial detriment to the public good. Again, we've heard a lot of this, so I'm not going to rehash everything, but essentially recapping the proximity to residential or lack thereof, the proximity to an interstate highway, and proposing a use that can be essentially screened properly from adjacent roadways and from all surrounding areas. The area of disturbance would be less than what was already on the property, not any closer to the stream corridors, and will be enhancing landscaping, aesthetics, and other aspects of the site. Lastly, with regard to the negative criteria and the use for the use and demonstrating how it would not have substantial detriment to the master plan or zoning ordinance. There's a lot of detail here, but I think we can again go to the point of this is a BI zone that allows various non-residential uses. We have a site that was previously developed and is no longer viable for its current use. We're proposing a use that actually fits within the township's efforts to try to limit warehouse development to certain sizes and certain locations. So I think clearly, even though we're not permitted today, the applicant falls within all 10 of those factors if and when Executive Drive is vacated. Otherwise, it's 9 of the 10 factors that are met with this property. So I think for all intents and purposes, we're clearly consistent with the objectives of the township's planning efforts, despite not being technically permitted as a use. I'll turn now to the C variances. Again, briefly, we have the issue of the off-street parking and loading spaces within the required setback. This one is one that won't go away because there was parking proposed along 287, but Exhibit A3 that was shown previously demonstrates the grade change between the highway and the building and parking areas. There's also substantial existing vegetation in the highway right-of-way, plus additional planted areas that would be proposed on site. And again, frankly, this is actually very much an improvement over existing conditions where the entire highway frontage has parking areas within what would be the front yard required area. We're removing about half of that, and it's again only for vehicle or car parking, not for truck parking that would be in this location where we're violating that requirement. The other requirement with regard to a front yard is the Executive Drive, where loading is not permitted in terms of truck loading, off-street loading areas, including vehicular maneuvering. I think if we need to have this variance because for some reason the vacation doesn't happen, we do have a hardship. The site does have 3 frontages, a very extensive frontage on Route 287, as well as 300 feet, a decent, I don't know the exact number, but a decent amount on Davidson as well, plus Executive Drive. And that's where we're trying to focus anything that's an incursion into areas facing Executive Drive, which is actually really more of a private street currently, and in the future, hopefully will no longer be a public street. But it's really the portion of the site that can accommodate that type of use. It's away from the most visible road frontages and still set back well from all residential. We also have the variances we heard about for the driveway width, and actually that may even go away as well if we vacate the street. But we'll put in the proofs anyway. As you heard from the applicant's representative, the industry standard is about 40 feet. We're proposing 40.6 feet. This is more for public safety and trying to make sure trucks can maneuver. And it's only for the truck driveway we're dealing with here. The car driveway, meets the maximum widths that are set by ordinance. And again, it's only to this one property. And lastly, with regard to loading berths, we have the issue of the depth. We don't need to provide the 147 feet required because it'd be excessive compared to industry standards. And we think there's no basis for providing more pavement when you don't need it. So we're trying to reduce the impact of development. Lastly, with all the variances that are being sought, they can be granted under the C2 criteria. There's benefits of redeveloping the site, providing adequate parking and loading areas, enhancing landscaping, having code-compliant buildings, and essentially providing for an upgrade to this section of the township that would outweigh any detriments. So I don't think there'll be any substantial negative impacts from the C variances for all those 4 standards. Likewise, the negative criteria is met for the bulk variances, in my opinion, as well, for the reasons I stated previously.
And for the frontage variances on executive, I assume that the C1 would also potentially.
Yes, so it's C2 for all of them, in my opinion, but there's also this hardship issue that, again, those extensive road frontages, plus they're limited in the rear with some environmental constraints, so it's not a lot of room to work with. I know, the building can be moved in different ways, but you're really limited with regard to where you can actually put that truck loading. This is the best place to do it, to an internal roadway, not the external roadways. Great. And then that will
Thank you.
conclude my direct testimony.
Yeah, those are my questions for this witness.
Okay, anything from the board? We'll open to the public. Anyone? Close to the public. Anything you want to add?
No, I don't need to belabor anything, just the few items I said in the beginning, which is with the vacation, just to have the nuance with the conditions so that if there's everything else is done, we can proceed. And granting those variances for the frontage, even though we think they'll go away. Other than those clarifications, I think we're good.
Okay, anything the board wants? Mark, you want to offer a motion?
Well, I'll just reiterate, in case if somebody wants to make it in the form of a motion, if, the applicant agreed to all of the staff reports. I think the only additional testimony that I can recall was in response to Rich's suggestion about the, don't block the intersection, maybe adding some signage or striping. And then otherwise, they've testified to how they were going to comply to the different staff reports. I don't recall, Brian, I don't know if your notes, if you have anything else additional to that.
No. Wasn't there a suggested condition in your opening statement, or am I confusing that?
That's the one I just mentioned, that, yeah, we will vacate the street, but we do want the nuance that if that's delayed for some other reason, that we can continue. Other than that.
Yeah, I didn't mention that because frankly, I didn't think to mention that because frankly, both myself and the engineer had recommended that the street, if the application was approved, be vacated. And just to clarify, just for, so you hear it from staff as opposed to just the applicant, the position of the township and then the staff is, again, it's only going to be serving them. So the township shouldn't be responsible if the board was to approve it, to maintain it, plow it, et cetera. Basically, only going to be serving them, so they should own it and they should maintain it. So that's the suggestion in a nutshell. And staff is, I'm sorry?
The cul-de-sac vault too.
Yeah. So I would suggest again that if there was a condition, that it would be, that the applicant has to participate, has to make the request to vacate it. They have to participate in good faith to the degree they have to. There's really minimal involvement on their part. And that, they have to basically participate, and at the end of the day, if they've met all of the different conditions, and if the township doesn't move forward with the vacation, they shouldn't necessarily be responsible for that as long as they've done everything that they have to do to move that forward. And also, I think related to that, they should explore to the degree, if it's possible and appropriate for some of the pavement of that existing cul-de-sac to be removed, that they would do, that would be part of the application as well.
Okay. I move that we grant IDI Logistics LLC a D1 use variance and the required C variances necessary for it to construct a 212,500 square foot warehouse at 1-3 Executive Drive, Somerset Block 469, lots 1.03, 1.04, 1.07 in the BI zone. This variance is subject to the applicant pursuing the vacation of the street currently known as Executive Drive and moving forward in good faith and cooperating with the town to vacate that street so long as the applicant proceeds in good faith and does all of the things it needs to do to achieve the vacating of that street. It will have complied with this requirement. Further, if the street is vacated, the applicant should try to see if any of the macadam used on that street can be removed to reduce the impervious coverage, and further, the signage at the intersection of Executive Drive and Davidson should indicate a notice that the truck should not block the traffic at that intersection. I think that's it.
You might have a record of the longest motion ever.
Could we add to that, Mr. Shepherd? Mr. Shepherd, could we add to that with the understanding that they work hard in obtaining a tenant?
Yeah, you can add that to it?
Mr. Shepherd?
Yeah, I'll accept that amendment.
All right, we have a second?
Richard Prokanic?
Yes.
Wasim Verdas?
Yes.
Alan Rich?
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal?
Yes.
Robert Shepherd?
Yes.
Faraz Khan?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, is there a motion to close?
I'm-
Do we need to send a recommendation to the council?
No, I think, and I think the applicant can do so whenever they wish. I think in the drafting of the resolution, I mean, I think by the fact that you're conditioning the approval on that, I think sends the, you know, the message to the council that you're in favor of
It just
it.
seems we have so much concerns about it. I've never known that the council refused in
Yeah,
something like this. So, I agree, I don't think there's any issue, but.
Yeah, the discussion hasn't been had, obviously, with the council yet, because it's, I mean, this was just discussed tonight with you. But staff will make the same recommendation to council that I discussed with you, that there's frankly no reason for the township to maintain it. You know, and that should be their responsibility. So believe me, that'll be communicated to the council, and they'll make the decision that they make.
And as needed, we can send a letter, a formal letter.
Yeah, I think that should kickstart the process. And again, staff certainly, as I've indicated, staff certainly recommends that it be vacated now. if
Okay,
this is gonna
good,
move
now we'll
forward.
have a motion to close.
I move that we adjourn.
Right, meeting adjourned.